Today I realized that rejection does not always come to break us, but sometimes it comes to set us on the right path. When my daughter turned 3, I interviewed for the top Christian preschools. I applied to the ones that I thought were good for her, and then some other places I applied to. One place stood out specifically, and I'm like, I have to get her into this school. When you pull up, it's grand. It has all the bells and the whistles. It had also prayer groups for moms and outings for moms and all the things, and of course, chapel, all the things that you would wish for and pray for, especially coming from being a stay at home parent to where you don't really have a lot of connection. So I was like, okay, I'm going to apply here. This is probably like a long shot, but let's see what happens. She got in. And so it was like an amazing thing. We were so happy. And I'm like, yes, this is finally going to be the place where she'll grow, she'll learn, she'll be here for forever. Because when I say forever, the school went from preschool all the way to high school. So I said, okay, well, she's going to stay here throughout high school. We'll meet other families, we'll grow up together and all the things. And so it was really, really an exciting time. But two things. First, all the glitters ain't gold, and everything that's marked as Christian isn't Christian. And so you have to remember that just like the devil's other places, he shows up to these schools. And so out of the gate, we had issues. It started with them, my daughter was in the class, and they said she wasn't listening. And so they gave all the kids in the class candy except for her. Now, when she came out of school that day, she was crying profusely. And my daughter's always had a speech delay, so she's been a little bit behind with her words ever since COVID. And so she's explained to me what happened. So I immediately called the school. And I'm like, oh, well, we do this sometimes, especially when a kid isn't listening. I said, well, what was she not listening about? Because she listens at home. Oh, they asked the kids to sit on a rug in a certain way, and she didn't do it. And so it was always something like that, something to where it's, minor in a sense, but to them it was like a big deal and there were consequences. So because of these consequences, there were multiple times where I told them, I'm pulling her out of here. We don't need to be here. And of course, they always say, no, let's meet, let's talk about it, let's pray about it. We want you guys here. We love you guys. It was always some kind of baloney. And so I kept her there. And we went through the first year dealing with the minor things, which still were a pain in the behind. And I started to feel ostracized. Although I did volunteer in the classrooms, all those things, it was kind of like being in a big country club, but not being able to sit at the table. And so we go into our second year, which was our final year there, and the minor things became major things. It started to be like, oh, she doesn't know her ABCs, or we don't know if she can count to 10. She does know her ABCs, and she can count to 10. She does it at home. And then I started recording them. Whenever we have a meeting, I would record them. And of course, catch them in a bunch of lies. Okay, well, you said that she did X, Y, and Z. So can you explain to me what she did and tell me how she did it? Because that's not what you said on the phone. Oh, well, maybe I misspoke. Okay, well, clearly you did. So I would record all these things. They never knew I was recording them. I still have those recordings to this day. Um, and so it just became a thing like, I can't do this. This is stressful. I came here thinking it was going to be one way. I came here thinking that this was going to be a place that we can cultivate together, both her and I. I have a master's degree, so at some point I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll teach here. Like it was all these things that, okay, well, this definitely has to be the place we're supposed to be because she got in. What is the purpose of her getting in if she's not supposed to be here? So clearly she's supposed to be here. So I went back and forth in my mind about those things. During the 2 years we were there, we met two families, both who had issues at the school, mind you. And that the two families that I met were the families that actually came with us recently, just this past weekend to Nashville to celebrate my daughter's birthday. But I'll get back to that in a second. So both of those parents had issues as well. So we kind of like, made our own group, kind of venting and trying to figure out what we're going to do. The first year, my other friend pulled her son out, didn't return him. And then by the second year, me and the other mom had decided we were not going to return. But it was a journey for me getting to a place where we're not going to return because although we were being mistreated, once you get into the country club, you want to stay in the country club. So, it's kind of like, how high do you want to jump? And I was just like praying to God, like, I don't know what to do. I definitely need to take her out of here. I don't have any backups. And so what happened was in her second year there, we were getting close to the end of the school year. And they told me, well, we feel like she's not ready to go to kindergarten. She needs to stay back a year. I'm like, who stays back in preschool? Well, we just think it'll be better for her. She can go over her ABCs again and go over her numbers and yada, yada, yada. I'm like, she knows her ABCs and she knows her numbers. We've been through this before. Yeah, but she's on the younger side. We think she should stay back. And I kept saying, no, I don't want her to stay back. I talked to other moms who I said, have you guys ever been asked or told that your kid needs to stay back in preschool? And there were like three moms who said, yes, this has happened to them. And they told the school no. So I gave them a firm no. And they were like, no. They came back to me with a no. And then as I kept, giving a rebuttal, no, this is what I want for her. They would started saying, okay, well, let's meet towards the end of the year. And that date kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. With the thing of, oh, we're just so busy, we'll meet with you soon. In that process, my uncle, who is deceased, came to me in a dream and he said to me very clearly, he was walking and he turned to me and said, she's going to a new school. The next morning, I got up like there was fire under my butt, and I applied to another school that she had interviewed with before. And at that point, I'm like, well, it's kind of late. So I'm checking my computer. At that point, I'm like, it's kind of late. I don't know if she's going to get in or whatever. But they were still in the enrollment process. I think it was like 2 or 3 days for the enrollment window closed, and so I applied. I didn't say anything to the other school, but I applied. I met with the new school. You have to do interviews, all those things. Your kid has to test. It's like a whole process you have to go through. And then I want to say it was almost like the last 2 days of school, she got an acceptance letter. I still didn't say anything. And then the school decides they're going to meet with me. I don't know if this was like the last day of school. I really don't remember. And they're like, well, yeah, we made our decision that she needs to continue to stay in preschool. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. And so, she had her preschool graduation. I showed up and I smiled and I played the game. And I said, we're so excited about coming back in the fall. This is going to be great for her to stay behind. In my mind, I'm like, okay, they're playing a game. I'm going to play the game and I'm going to show them that I'm not powerless. And that, yes, I did. At one point, I wanted to be a part of whatever this community was. I thought it was a Christian community, but it's not. Because, like I said, just like the devil shows up other places, he shows up at the Christian school. And the people, and I can't say the school as a whole, but some of the people who were in charge were full of the devil, full of it. And so, maybe like a week or two after school ended, I sent them an email. I never said she was accepted to another school. I just said I prayed about it. We're going in a different direction. And I moved on and I never looked back. And so, through that process, I was like trying to figure out, like, God, like, what was the reason why we were there? And I still didn't know the reason why we were there. Fast forward to this past weekend when two of my daughter's friends that we met at that school traveled to Nashville to celebrate her birthday, celebrate her seventh birthday. And my mom said to me as we were leaving, like, you have your community. Like these people showed up, they drove all these hours, the whole families came out, even the grandmothers came out. She's like, this was like an amazing experience. And so sometimes one, rejection can come to set us on the right track, but it also you can meet people in that process through that rejection that you can still become friends with and have a connection with. And so I took those two things from that experience. So it wasn't a wash, but I learned a lesson. I learned a hard lesson that everything that glitters ain't gold and everything that has a Christian label on it is not Christian. And so you definitely need to pray about where you're sending your kids to before you send them there, and get clarity on what it is and where you're sending them, because I didn't particularly get clarity. I just knew in my mind she got in. This is where she is supposed to be. Like, what are the odds? Because there were so many families, even to this day, that asked how we got into the school because they've been rejected multiple times. And I said we interviewed and they accepted us, and that was it. So, what have you gone through? What rejection have you dealt with? And what did you learn from it? What was your experience from it? And have you ever dealt with rejection from a quote unquote Christian institution, that left you hurt and left you wondering, like, how can people act this way and they're supposed to be Christian? like I said, supposed to be, because they're not. Yeah, I'm just curious of what you might have gone through, what you might have experienced, and what you learn from that process. Because sometimes these lessons are hard and they're hurtful, but they're for a reason. So definitely leave me a note in the comments and let me know what you think.